September 20th, 1944. Over the rolling hills near Aracourt, France, a German panzer commander scanned the quiet morning sky. He was searching for the familiar roar of thunderbolts or Mustangs, the American fighter-bombers that had shattered so much of the Wehrmacht's armor since D-Day. But what appeared next wasn't a fighter, nor even a threat, at least not to his eyes. From the clouds descended a tiny fabric-covered plane, barely moving at 100 miles per hour. Its engine hummed softly, more like a lawnmower than a weapon of war. Yet beneath its fragile wings bristled 6 tubes, bazookas, giving it the menacing silhouette of an angry porcupine. That absurd little aircraft was a Piper L4 Cub, the military version of a civilian trainer. It was meant to spot artillery, deliver messages, maybe photograph battlefields, not attack tanks. Its 65-horsepower engine could barely lift 2 men and a full tank of fuel. But inside that cockpit sat Major Charles Carpenter, a former high school history teacher from Illinois, ready to prove that courage and imagination could make even the weakest machine into a legend. Carpenter had never dreamed of becoming a warrior. Before the war, he taught history, tales of generals, empires, and battles that shaped the world. But when Pearl Harbor was attacked in December 1941, he, like millions of Americans, felt a fire ignite within him. At 29, married with 2 children, he could have stayed home. Instead, he enlisted, trading chalk dust for aviation fuel. He imagined himself in the cockpit of a Mustang, dueling German fighters across Europe. Reality had other plans. The Army, seeing his age and temperament, assigned him to liaison aviation, a job that few envied. His mission was not glory, but guidance, to fly the Piper L4 Grasshopper ahead of advancing troops, spot German positions, and call in artillery strikes. The Grasshopper was a marvel of simplicity, weighing less than 800 pounds. It was slower than most cars, and built of little more than steel tubing and canvas. A single rifle bullet could end its mission. Yet its pilots flew daily, low and exposed, mapping enemy lines and bringing intelligence no general could fight without. Carpenter flew these dangerous missions across France through August and September 1944. He saw the battlefield from a perspective few others could, high enough to witness the grand sweep of war, yet low enough to see the faces of the men fighting it. He watched German tanks withdraw, time and again, slipping away before American bombers could strike. He grew restless. From above, he could see what artillery couldn't reach: tanks hiding in forests, moving through villages, preparing ambushes. He could see them, but he couldn't touch them. That powerlessness gnawed at him. Charles Carpenter was not a soldier of doctrine. He was a teacher who understood the lessons of history. The great victories, he knew, belonged to those who dared to defy convention. So one day in September 1944, he approached his commanding officer with an idea so crazy it bordered on madness. He wanted to mount bazookas on his plane. The M1A1 bazooka was designed to be fired from a soldier's shoulder, not from a flying lawnmower. But Carpenter believed its lightweight and powerful shaped charge warhead could turn his Piper Cub into something the Germans would never expect. His commander, unsurprisingly, thought he'd lost his mind. Every manual said it couldn't be done. The L4 had no armor, no gun mounts, no fire control system, not even self-sealing fuel tanks. Adding weapons would overload the fragile wings and risk igniting the fabric covering. But Carpenter was persuasive, confident that his slow-flying plane offered one advantage: precision. He could get close, he could aim, he could make every shot count. Permission came, unofficial, experimental, and entirely at his own risk. Carpenter and his ground crew scavenged 6 bazooka tubes and mounted them 3 on each wing strut, angled slightly downward. Wires ran from the firing tree. The first test came behind friendly lines. Carpenter aimed his modified Cub, now dubbed Rosie the Rocketer, at a wrecked German half-track. He fired. The 6 rockets whooshed away in a burst of smoke and flame. When the haze cleared, the target was burning. His plane, miraculously, was still intact. Word spread like wildfire through the 4th Armored Division. Some crazy pilot had just turned a paper airplane into a tank killer. The infantry cheered, the tankers grinned. And the legend of Bazooka Charlie was born. Days later, Carpenter took Rosie the Rocketer into combat for the first time. Flying over a tree line ahead of advancing troops, he spotted a German column, trucks, half-tracks, and tanks weaving through the French countryside. The artillery couldn't reach them. The fighter bombers were too far away. So Carpenter dove. From 1,000 feet, he pressed the firing button. 6 streaks of smoke cut through the morning air. 2 rockets missed, but the others struck home. A half-track exploded. Flames erupted across the road. German soldiers scattered in disbelief, staring up at the unthinkable, a Cub attacking them. When American troops arrived, they found smoldering wrecks and captured German crews who could barely explain what had happened. A little yellow plane, they said, with rockets. It sounded like a fairy tale, but it was real. Carpenter kept flying, refining his technique with every mission. He learned that the perfect attack came from behind, in a shallow dive at around 800 feet. He'd strike from the sun, fire his rockets between 300 and 400 yards, then veer away before the Germans could react. By October 1944, everyone in the division knew his name. The Mad Major, Bazooka Charlie, the teacher who hunted tanks, the man who made German armor fear the sound of a lawnmower engine. Each mission grew riskier. Carpenter was hit more than once. Bullet holes stitched across his wings, through his fuselage, sometimes just inches from his seat. His crew patched the fabric with whatever they had: tape, canvas, prayer. But each time, Rosie flew again. Even bad weather couldn't stop him. When rain and fog grounded the mighty thunderbolts, Carpenter's Cub kept flying, gliding just above the treetops, unseen until it was too late. He struck when no one else could, and that made him invaluable. Eventually, his luck ran thin. In October, while attacking near Ericourt, anti-aircraft fire tore through his aircraft. Carpenter crash-landed behind friendly lines, badly wounded. He survived, barely, but his combat flying days were over. Officially, Major Carpenter was credited with destroying or disabling several German tanks, including 2 Panthers and multiple armored vehicles. Unofficially, his legend grew far beyond numbers, to the men on the ground. He was proof that courage could turn the impossible into reality. Even engineers marveled at his success. The bazookas added nearly 120 pounds to the plane, a huge burden for a 65-horsepower engine. It reduced his speed and range, yet somehow made the Cub even more stable in attack dives. Each rocket, a 3.5-pound warhead of molten copper and fire, turned the sky into a battlefield the Germans could no longer predict. Carpenter's invention didn't just destroy tanks, it shattered expectations. It showed that with enough ingenuity, even a reconnaissance plane could rewrite the rules of warfare. The Piper Cub became more than a liaison plane. It became a symbol of American improvisation and defiance. The Germans learned to fear the sight of those small, slow-moving shadows in the sky. The same planes they once ignored now brought death and confusion to their columns. The mental toll was enormous. Tank crews never knew when that tiny speck overhead might unleash hell. To the Americans, Bazooka Charlie became a legend. Soldiers would cheer when they saw his plane dip into a dive, rockets flaring from its wings. It wasn't just about destruction. It was about belief. If a school teacher could turn a Piper Cub into a tank killer, then anything was possible. After the war, Carpenter returned home to Illinois. He went back to teaching, back to normal life, carrying memories few could imagine. He passed away in 1966 at the age of 53, leaving behind a legacy of fearless creativity. His plane, Rosie the Rocketer, survived. Restored and displayed in museums, it stands as a monument to one man's audacity, a reminder that innovation often comes from the unlikeliest places. Today, when pilots or engineers look back on World War II, they see beyond the machinery. They see people like Charles Carpenter, ordinary men who refused to stay ordinary when history called. His story isn't just about rockets or tanks. It's about human spirit, about looking at the impossible and saying, "Let's try anyway." Major Charles Bazooka Charlie Carpenter didn't just change the way a Piper Cub flew. He changed the way people thought about courage. He proved that in war, as in life, imagination can be the deadliest weapon of all. Thank you for watching this story of ingenuity, bravery, and one man's defiance. If you enjoyed this journey into forgotten history, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, because there are still countless untold stories of ordinary heroes who dared to do the impossible.